Just tell me when you're set again.
Okay, you got 15 minutes on this phone.
And that better do it.
No, well, I mean,
Okay.
we'll figure something
Then
out.
we'll pause and upload, and then
Yeah.
it'll be break time by
Yeah.
then.
Came there to Japan, and again, I was one of 200 pulled off. And we were picked out for CBR, chemical, biological, radiological warfare. And the rest of that load went to Korea. And I was pulled out, and we took, I think, about 6 weeks of training in Japan's Annapolis. It was nice. It was first class. And so, like I say, a month there in Fort Lewis, and here's 6 weeks in Japan. And stuff is grinding along in Korea, but it's sort of headed for the finish. And we were there, and we completed our classes, and it's time to go, and we have to ship out from, I think, Camp Drake near Tokyo. Yeah, we went up there, and we were going to ship out, but then for some reason, we had to go back down, and there's tunnels, railroad tunnels that connect these islands. And travel was by rail, and they had a cloudburst or something, and some of these tunnels were flooded. So I'm sitting there in Camp Drake, Tokyo, for another 2 weeks, maybe more. And that's where I met a friend, Jan Ringersma. And he was a member of the Dutch battalion, all the UN people that were also fighting in Korea. And, you know, I knew a few words of Dutch, and these were different. Americans, oh guy, when they're on the loose, not a terrible lot of discipline and stuff, and noisy. And I'd go to the barracks where these Dutchmen were, and it was quiet. We could talk. They had been through Port Said by Egypt on the Suez Canal, and I don't know how they all went to get to Tokyo. And yeah, do some visiting. One thing I do remember is we had to get called out, fall out by companies, the different ones, to go to mess hall. Because you can't turn, I think there were thousands of men there, and you can't just turn 2,000 and say, go grab it. It's time for supper. It's all done. Well, anyhow, when it was turned for the Dutch, I was just hanging around the barracks and listening and watching, and their sergeant went out there and he barked out orders in Dutch, you know. And these guys, let me tell you, where they did it, it was like this and this arm and everything, just like that. And then he barked out another order, and they goose-stepped, just exactly like the Nazis did. And that's the way they went to the mess hall. And it was for show, of course. And we remember both guys looking at them. Those guys were good. Also, they had a lot of men there in little purple berets. And I said, Jan, what's that? Well, those are people from Indonesia. He was from Indonesia too, but he had been living in Holland and drafted from Holland. And Indonesia was a Dutch colony, and so they picked men out of there for the armed services, and they were very quiet, short men. And Jan said, now don't poke fun of them or fool around with them. They like to be a little bit quiet by themselves. And he said, if you do that, then the first time they will say, well, just, that's okay, just back off. And he says, if you do it again, they will tell you a little bit stronger. No, we don't like that, and please leave us alone. And he says, if you do it a third time, you are on your own. You may or may not make it. They didn't want to be messed with. So we wound up going to Korea, and it took a while to get there, and we landed way down in the south end, and everything was blackout. We got on a train, headed north, and the train was completely blacked out. I don't think they were even allowed to light a cigarette, and men were nervous. I can't say that I was nervous, but a lot of the boys were, and because you knew you was headed up to the front line, that's what was to it. And yeah, then we got stopped, and then I was loaded on a truck with maybe a half a dozen other men, back end of what they call a deuce and a half, which is a GMC truck, tandem axe, that would carry men or material or whatever. And driver was in there, and no lights. He knew where he was going. All he had was in little blackout lights. You know, you couldn't see from the air or from a distance. Little orange markers, kind of. And he drove like a madman. Found out later on that the Koreans were masters in using the mortar. They would, mortar's a tube that puts a shell way up in the air and way down. They were masters at estimating distance, and they would throw one out way in front of the truck. And then they would throw one out behind, even though the truck was moving. And the third one, they were very good at dropping it on you. So this guy knew that, and he drove accordingly. And wound up getting to my place in the dark, and got sent to a tent, and found out the following day that the truce had been signed. And Angie knew it, but we did not. And so that was the beginning of the year in Korea, and that was different, and that kind of settled in my mind, you know, what war was about, and whether it was worth it. And I'd say within a year, I kind of made my mind up that if the boys were going to be drafted, then I think we were going to move to Canada. I didn't see it was worthwhile to send, you know, more cannon fodder out there. And for what reason? War is hell. I just saw the aftermath. Where I was at was the place, the valley that they marched up and down. First, Americans went on up, you know, and then they got beat back all the way back down, you know, and then it went up again, and I think there was another time it got beat back. And the only thing visible of civilization where I was at in this whole valley was I could see a foundation stone here, and one there, and then there was grass growing and trees, and if I looked real close, then, oh yeah, here's the other one. That's the only thing I saw of civilization in that place. Later on, I got out for hitchhiking, found another friend, and hitchhiked to see him. Then I saw a valley and a farming place that I think was the same as it was 2,000 years ago. The houses were all inside a little wall about this high. The rice fields were around there, and the houses were thatched with rye straw. They were double cropping. The rye was in rows. The soybeans were in between, and they were about that high. The rye was ready to harvest, and then there was room for the soybeans to go. And I thought, you guys are pretty sharp farmers. That's okay, double cropping like that. But, yeah, then I got out of there, no accidents, and stuff like that. came home and was very happy to be home. I think it took me a little while to adjust. I don't know. I remember very well that I'd been home a while, and then Mom had a little, because we were living in the same farm places, a little welcoming party. Some cousins were there, and then another guy who had been to Korea, and we didn't have a thing to talk about. And I thought at the time, this is funny. No. The two of us didn't have a thing to talk about. There's something up there, you know. My friend Wilbur Vandenbos was there. Roughly, I think, about the time that my whole training battalion flew out. And he was there 30 days. He had been there about a week. Never saw a thing, you know, got acclimated to wherever he was on the line, and then the orders came down. We were going to take that hill because we wanted that observation from that hill there. We're going to go there. And that's when he took a bullet in his head, and a couple of days afterwards he was picked up, and the guy was picking up bodies says, "Oh, this one's alive." So they carried him out, and they never did get the bullet out because it was in his head in a place where it couldn't operate. He went blind. He was not blind at first. Yeah, we buried him last year. And Bob Bushman we buried November. Yeah. So some of these, you only have a few friends. Some of them are winking out one at a time. Again, God has taken very good care of me. No question about that. And when I see some of the other stuff going on in the world, I was on R&R to Tokyo. That was nice. I was wandering around with Jan Ringersma, and we came to a Buddha there that was, I would say, as high as this house, practically. And there was a little old lady there, and she was laying a pan of fruit, kind of not in his arms. I think it was more at the Buddha's feet. And I thought, well, if that's your idea of God, there's got to be some straightening out there, because that pile of stones is not God. It's not God, but, you know, Far East is steeped in Hindu, Buddha, and Shinto, and a couple others, and they have their people by the tens of millions there in that part of the world. Oh,
2 minutes.
You almost done?
Yeah, 2 minutes.
2 minutes?
Mm-hmm.
I have always loved to see beautiful women. I may as well say it. Anyhow, when I was a little boy, probably 15 or 16, went to the skating rink in Canton, South Dakota. And there was a girl there. She smiled at me. Oh, she was good looking. Classmate of Grace Boardman. Anyhow, saw pictures of her. We got a photo album from Grace, Bob, when he passed away. And there's her high school picture in there, and a picture of her when she was in a college choir. She and her husband always sang at funerals in Monado. I never saw her after that 10 minutes at the skating rink. You know, never saw her again. And I knew through Grace, she married so-and-so in Inwood, had children, sang a lot. She and her husband had beautiful voices. And then she got a stroke very early in life. Her husband took care of her. He built a track through the house on the ceilings, pick her out of bed, bring her to the bathroom, bring her to the kitchen in a Hoyer lift, all like that. Cared for her until one time we went to the care center in Inwood, Iowa to see Wilbur Van Boss. And I stepped in there and so forth and so on. And here is a blob in a wheelchair. And I mean a blob. Just, and there's a name on the back of it. Marguerite